this meeting to order. Welcome everybody to the meeting. Turn your mic on. Great. I'll have to excuse Commissioners Nelson and Elmer. They're not here today. And we'll start. So we'll move to item number 2 on the agenda, which is consent or approval of the Planning Commission minutes from July 12th, 2023. So you all had a chance to review those. Any concerns? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I motion to approve the Planning Commission minutes from July 12th, 2023 without amendment.
Got a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We all said aye, but figure it might as well give us an opportunity.
Nice have it.
All right, so those pass. That brings us to item number 3 on our agenda, which is a public hearing to take public comment for and or against Harrisville Ordinance 542, which is an amendment to our home occupation standards. So, you want me to read these rules in first, or should I turn the time over to you for a staff report?
I can either or.
All right, we'll start with the rules for a public hearing, and then we'll turn some time over to Jenny for the staff introduction of the issue. So the rules for public hearing, they're an opportunity for you to state your opinion, tell us what you think about it. Remember, it's not a discussion. Feedback in regards to questions or comments might not be provided within this meeting. Remember to state your name clearly, speak into the microphone. Each person will have 3 minutes, although with the number of people, we could probably extend that. And just to be respectful of everyone else there. Be respectful, we don't want shouting, finger pointing, applause. And if you're disorderly, we can ask you to leave. And yeah, so those are our rules. So Jenny, if you'd introduce this issue we've got today.
Sure. I will, good evening, Commissioners. I will just give a brief overview of that the city received an application from applicant Madeline Haas for a text change amendment to the land use ordinance. The application is in reference to a home occupation standard amendment for a proposed home occupation located at approximately 245 Larson Lane. And now is the time for us to take public comment for or against this ordinance. We can go into further details during the discussion.
Okay. Well, we should make sure we welcome everybody online as well, and I guess I'll take a motion to open that public hearing so we can let everyone speak. We're ready for a motion.
I'll motion to open for public comment.
All right. I have a second.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, guys have it. We're open for public comment. For a public hearing on the home occupation standards. Anyone wants to speak? Come up to the microphone.
Is that her turn to come
That's
If she would
everyone
like
in the
to.
public who wants to come up.
Okay. Well, I'll talk. So I am Madeline Haas. I'm not good at public speaking like my dad is, so just bear with me. But I just kind of wanted to give you background on this because it's something more new, and so a lot of people freak out because they hear the word tattoo and immediately jump to tattooing. So I want this revision to happen because I am a mom and I want to be able to work out of the home. And for me, this is something just like a personal service where it's cosmetic. So you have your aesthetics, you have your hair, your nails. Those are all allowed out of the home right now, and this is something that's not. So the difference between the permanent makeup and the tattooing, there's quite a bit of differences. First of all, they use a completely different machine. This machine doesn't go as deep as tattooing, so it's not as permanent as tattooing. It only lasts between which service you use. It's 1 to 5 years. And it also uses completely different ink than tattooing. They used to use tattoo machines like 10 years ago for permanent makeup, and they started noticing that it would kind of fade to green or a, light gray color. And so they changed it up, and that's why they've come up with this new machine. And so, although it still uses needles, and so it falls under the category of tattooing, it's just like a personal service, and it's a service that I think people want in Harrisville. And this ordinance kind of makes it so it's not that slippery slope of, we're still being Harrisville, but allowing this service to be used as well. So.
Those that are online, would you like to make a comment?
Anyone else? Give you a few minutes to decide if you want to come up. No? Okay, seeing as there's no other public comment, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
I think I'm supposed to come to council meeting,
That was last
and that's the wrong night, so I made a mix-up.
Okay. Well, our public hearing is about
Project.
home occupation standards. So if you want to talk about those, feel
The
free.
what?
Home occupation standards. We're
Home
amending it.
occupation. No, I don't have a home here, so I won't need to. Thank you very much.
Well, we wanted to give you the opportunity. Alright, yeah,
I'll motion that we close our public hearing.
I'll second that.
Alright, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And again, any opposed? Okay. Closed our public hearing. Moves us to item number 4, which is discussion action recommend adoption of proposed Harrisville Ordinance 542, which is home occupation standard amendments. Jenny, do you want to go in depth on the staff memo point?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioners. I think our applicant, Madeline Haas, did a great job of defining the difference between where a regular tattoo machine is used and the permanent makeup unit. This is a recommendation by the city attorney to outline in the home occupation this permitted use so that it's defined under a personal service, because the tattoo parlors are not a permitted use in our commercial or manufacturing zone.
Okay.
So this would allow the use of a permanent makeup unit in a home occupation. There are other regulations that would also be required for visiting clientele under a conditional use permit once, if the city council adopts this ordinance. This was noticed according to Utah State Code, and we've now held our public hearing, so it's up to commissioners' discussion to decide whether that amendment moves forward.
I have a question. So this isn't allowed in the commercial zone, but we're going to allow it in a residential zone.
Correct.
Most of the occupations we have in a home are allowed in the commercial zone. Is this going to cause any issues if they try to scale and get a commercial spot and it's not allowed commercially in the city?
So we had discussion over this exact issue with the city attorney, and if it is happening elsewhere in the city in the commercial zone, it's not outlined on the application.
Okay.
So if it is happening in a salon, it's not
I don't
being
think it is.
called
I'm
out
just- I'm
as
wondering if we should put it in the commercial uses as well.
that's an option too. If the commission wants to amend the uses in the commercial zone the recommendation from our attorney was to restrict it to home occupation so that it
Okay.
didn't open up other avenues. But it's up to your discretion. If you want to recommend changes, we can recommend changes
Yeah,
as it moves
what can be
forward.
a slippery slope is just if we are not allowing this in a commercial business, so salon can't have this, but someone in their house can. So if you wanted to open a business and have more employees, you have to go to a different city. But if you want to do it in your house, whereas everything else you can do both ways. That'd be a separate ordinance to put it into the commercial. But I think it'd be worth putting into the commercial, potentially specifically designating it as permanent makeup as a personal service in that commercial section. Just so it is in both. I think it's
Was there any other reason by the city attorney?
Mainly to restrict it. He agrees that home occupations should be more restrictive than commercial and manufacturing uses. But this particular application, what was being asked of the city, this met those requirements.
So this basically is just covering the scarring or the tattooing part of it,
It's
the
permanent.
addition, yeah. And it's not permanent, it fades away.
It fades with time. It's used, as the applicant explained, it uses a completely different machine. But where the city had concern, or staff had concern, was the licensing requirement by the state requires them to be licensed as a tattoo artist because it's using a needling machine. And we didn't want to open that up to a question of other personal services that might be asked of the city that aren't permitted uses. So
Right.
we wanted to make sure that what's being asked is what's included.
So
That
start
it is-
small, and if they want to go commercial, they'll have to come back then at that point. Keep it under
Right.
control at this point.
Yep.
And we didn't have a lot of people showing up to protest it, so. Any other concerns, commissioners?
So in terms of the space in your home, how much of the space in your home?
We'll get to that when they come back. They have to get a conditional use permit to actually operate it.
That's true.
So this is just saying, can they have the machine? Whereas the actual site and everything else comes with a conditional use that would be required to have visitors over to have it run. Unless she's just doing it on people that actually live there, in which case she's not having to buy a town. So,
Yeah, I don't have any problems with this.
well, I think we're ready for a motion to recommend this to the city council.
Anybody want to give it a go?
I'll do it. I'll make a motion that we send a positive recommendation on Harrisville Ordinance 542 onto the city council for adoption of the ordinance.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. That takes us to section 5, which is public comments. This is any public comments you wanted to add, regardless of topic. You're welcome to come up and speak.
I think you should have made Mom come and give your speech for you. She's watching the kids.
Yeah.
No one wants to come up for public comment. We'll move on to item number 6, which is commission and staff follow-up. Jenny, do you have follow-up for us?
I do actually. I just
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Me too.
As was requested by the commissioners a little bit ago, we have scheduled with our city attorney, Brody Flint, to conduct some land use training on the next planning commission meeting on September 13th.
Nice.
So I don't have specifics on what he will be training us on, but it will count towards your hours, your annual hours. So we can plan on that for the 13th. And then if commissioners were requested, there was a comment prior to the meeting on whether you want to hold nominations for a chair and co-chair for the or vice chair, excuse me. Chair and vice chair for the remainder of the 2023 calendar year. It's up to you. We can put that on the agenda for the next meeting if you'd like to do that.
I would like to do that, just to formalize. So we don't just look like a Yankee commission.
Jordan, what's your opinion on
Sounds great.
it? Okay, well, there's 2 people in favor of the 4, so we may as well. I'm not opposed to it. I don't know that it's necessary, but we can put it on the agenda.
Just like,
All right,
very nice.
so we'll add that to the agenda for next
Thank you.
month.
Perfect. That way it will be formal. That way we'll have a backup for me in case I miss it.
Right, that's exactly
Otherwise
right.
we'd be lost. Okay. Anything else? Any follow-up?
Oh, I saw some trucks over at the golf course.
We're making progress.
I wish I could say that was for construction, but I can't. So it was probably coincidental at this
Alright.
point. Although city council did finalize approval of 2D at last night's meeting. But there are some other developments taking place with that particular developer. So they're ready to go from the city's permitting
Nice.
perspective, but we haven't seen any movement yet, or we haven't held a pre-construction meeting yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
My only follow-up was going to be on training.
Let's,
So when are we gonna push the people into developing the Dome golf course into doing something?
So our development agreement has a few deadlines, but it's not, it's kind of tricky, I guess I should say. The city council has asked a number of
I just think,
ways.
you see so much weed, so many weeds up there, there's gonna be some fire damage and, you know, who's gonna be responsible for that?
The private property owner is still responsible. The city's done everything we can to move the project forward.
Okay, I agree.
Temperature of the market has changed significantly. We've seen even our single-family home development across the street from us here is permitted, it's recorded, and they can take out building permits at any point, but we haven't seen any take, and it's been that way for about 6 months.
The guy in Thoroughbred is renting his homes now, so from what I understand.
There, in Warren Hollow,
Yeah, the ones across
on Larson Lee.
Yeah.
Yes, there are a number of homes down there that are ready for occupancy but haven't been sold. So it's pretty much the change in the market that has caused delays in our
Yeah.
development at this point.
Cheaper homes are still selling quickly, but anything over $600,000 has slowed down dramatically.
So it's,
Which you say cheap at 400,000, but that's what's moving still.
So what could you share with us the conversation that took place last night in regards to approving the road for that and
ordinance
then decreasing the
discussion.
height?
So it was limited discussion at last evening's meeting. The commissioners, or excuse me, the council members had time to mull over the request, and a motion was made to strike the portions that were height related. So they were removed from the ordinance, and they approved the access limitations section of that ordinance.
Okay, so striking the height requirement means what?
It was removed from the
Height
ordinance,
is
so
still
that
stuck at 45 feet.
the height requirement was not
So
changed.
the only part of the ordinance they passed was the access from arterial roads to minor collectors and future collectors and such. They took everything else out of the ordinance, and they didn't discuss much of it. I was on that.
Out of the
listening to it.
proposed ordinance change, right? Not the
Well, they
actual.
made it final.
They adopted the ordinance without that language in it.
So the ordinance
So
got
the
adopted
limita-
as
That
only
makes,
the roads.
that makes sense.
The access limitations are an allowed use now. And so applications that the city might receive for other locations of restricted development due to those, the
And
UDOT
some
corridor
applications.
agreement and other areas will now be available to have access from commercial to residential streets.
But any buildings
But
built will
collectors,
still have.
right?
All Actually, we amended it. The proposal that came through this body was to include a connection for a local road if that connection's within 150 feet of a state road. Because the restrictions on the corridor agreement with UDOT, for example, I've been using the corner of 700 North and the highway down by Walmart, that northwest corner. The UDOT will not give a permanent access for that lot because the restrictions on their master plan require it to be further south than that lot is located. And if the city didn't amend and allow an access on 700 North, there would be no way to develop that parcel. So we restrict it to within 150 feet of the state road, so that access can't be in the middle of 700 North. Walmart doesn't be allowed to access, it has to be within 150 feet of a state road, but it would allow them to have an access now. And UDOT will, based on the last meeting that I had with UDOT, they may grant a temporary access with a future access agreement for that to be relocated to the south when the property becomes available, because that property isn't part of the project. So it's a little difficult to allow developments to come through when our own ordinances were restricting them. But with this, it'll still hopefully maintain the integrity of most of those local roads, but allow a few of our commercial areas to develop.
Nice.
So that's what they opted to adopt, and the height was removed, so it remains at 45 feet.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So how did our developer, was he here last night? How did you?
Actually was not present during the meeting last evening.
Surprisingly. Okay, thank you. That's very interesting.
Any other follow-up? No further follow-up? All right. Moves us to number 7, to adjourn. Says I need a motion to adjourn. Can I just declare us adjourned?
You may, if
I'm just
you
gonna
prefer.
declare us adjourned at this time then. That's it. 7:21 by the computer
Take your
clock.
prerogative as the almost chair.
Yeah.
Chair pro tem.
Vice chair in this case. Perfect.